Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to how American and British bathrooms are very different. Now, this one kind of surprised me because I would not think that, I've been to America a few times and I can't say I've noticed anything that different about your bathrooms. But maybe, within the last, because I've not been to America in the last 4 years, maybe things have changed a bit. I mean, you've obviously got the toilet, you've got the sink, like what else could, but then again, so Americans refer to, I think you guys refer to a bathroom as just the toilet, whereas our bathroom would be the shower where you bathe, right? Like, I would say I want to go to the toilet if I needed to relieve myself. I wouldn't say I need to go to the bathroom. So maybe it's that. So yeah, this should be an interesting one to see what Lawrence has in store. So let's do it.
And I've also aged 10 years in that time, and it shows. My joints aren't what they were, so getting in and out of the bath was a bloody nightmare. Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to cleanliness. And one place that is absolutely synonymous with cleanliness, try saying that after 4 whiskies, I mean, I just did, but is the bathroom. And believe it or not, I've not yet, in my 4.5 years of doing a YouTube channel on the differences between Britain and America, talked about the differences between British and American bathrooms. So that is what I'm going to do today. So, as my bathwater gets deeper than the Marianas Trench, here are 5 ways in which British and American bathrooms are so very, very different. Yes, any Americans that have spent any time in Britain and vice versa will know that the way in which taps are presented is somewhat different, or at least can be. So having grown up in Britain, I was so very used to the taps being divided, not politically, that would be...
Yes, this is true. You've got the hot tap and the cold tap. Yeah.
Madness. But in terms of hot and cold. So washing your hands in a British sink goes one of 2 ways. Either you could just fill up the entire sink with both hot and cold water until it is warm and wash it that way with soap. Extra work, granted, but it does save on water usage. There is that. Or you could be really lazy, switch on the hot tap, do this, realise that it burns you, switch on the cold tap to cool it down, realises that that stings in a different way, and give up halfway through and suffer the consequences of poor hygiene.
I mean, in recent times, you are seeing a lot more mixing of taps and stuff like that. To be fair, we should have just adopted this a long time ago.
Now, I should mention that that is not entirely nationwide. There will be some bathrooms that unite the taps. And I was very happy to find, after moving to the United States, that it's not just commonplace in the US for that unification to happen. This is all sounding very political, needlessly so. But it's universal in the United States to have one central tap, or, as it's often known in the United States, a faucet. And this alleviates so many problems with washing hands. Now, I will find that I use far more water in doing so now. So again, there is that kind of give and take, but pound for pound, I'd prefer not to burn my hand off. Now, the separate taps in Britain go back to the fact that the taps and the plumbing is just really old, and you couldn't sort of mix the hot and the cold water back in the day, and it sort of stayed that way because of a lot of our buildings don't get demolished like they do in the United States, so they just keep that same old plumbing system. I mean, that's the watered down version of the explanation. Do you see what I did there? Yeah. Anyway, speaking of water, that brings us on to our next entry.
The toilet.
Whether you call it the toilet, the commode, the John, the loo, or the porcelain god, we can all agree that the toilet is one of the greatest inventions of all time, behind toilet paper, which I've just realised came after, as it always does. But when we are talking about Britain and America, there is one chief difference between how toilets are in those 2 countries, and it all comes down to one thing: the water level. So in Britain, you practically need binoculars just to make out the water level down below. Although if you do that, you run the risk of enhancing the size of other things. And the chief problem with it being so low, of course, is splashback. And you don't want that on a cold Monday morning, which again is why I was relieved to move to the United States, where the water level is really high. So when you come to do one, it gets lost in the pond. I'm so sorry. Just flush all of that out of your memory as we pull the switch.
But then, isn't that worse? Because if you go for a number 2 and the water level's really high, and you look down, your stuff is just floating around in the water. This is so disgusting. Whereas if the water level's low, it kind of just goes right down. See what I mean? Like,
Which, on entry number 3.
so nasty.
That's right, both countries use bathroom lights differently, but before you get the idea that Britain is still somehow using, I don't know, the candle, it's not the light source itself, but the mechanism by which we light it. In the United States, of course, this is almost always done using the light switch, and while that is also the case in a lot of UK homes and hotels and the like, you will find the odd, usually distinctly odd, bathroom in Britain where that very mode is essentially just a piece of string that you pull until it clicks. This can be very confusing for a lot of people walking in and not having a clue what that does. And to this day, I'm not entirely sure why it exists, but, you know, in addition to a dripping tap and a comfortable bathtub, I'm tempted to believe that it was designed by a cat. And speaking of bathtubs, that brings us on to our final 2 entries. I think it was the actor Burt Reynolds who said the most underrated thing in life is a nice hot bath. And I agree with Sir Burt. Was he a sir? He wasn't even British. He was American. He was correct.
I've not had a long, like just a bath where you just sit in the bathtub. I've not had one of those, no BS, in like maybe a decade. Literally, it's just been showers exclusively. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I can't. Maybe, yeah, it's been that long. Yeah, maybe today I'll switch it up because I've got a bath. I just never use it.
Baths are amazing, and one thing I noticed after moving to the United States is that the surface of the bathtub is actually at the same level as the ground outside of it. That's quite novel to a British person because where I'm from, the bathtub is raised. So when I was in England visiting this past May, I'd forgotten this fact after 10 years of being away. And I've also aged 10 years in that time, and it shows. My joints aren't what they were, so getting in and out of the bath...
Hold on, so your bathtubs are like in the floor? What?
Was a bloody nightmare, and I'm not afraid to admit it on live YouTube. So anybody from the United States who's visiting Britain that likes to have baths, keep that in mind. You may need to take a stepladder with you. Slight exaggeration. And speaking of baths and Americans that like to have them, that brings us on to our final entry. So it turns out that Burt Reynolds may well have been an anomaly when it comes to Americans that like to take baths. The truth is, it's not as big a pastime in America as it is in Britain. In Britain, we absolutely love to take hot baths. And this is evidenced by the fact that there is one thing and one thing alone that America doesn't do bigger, and that is the bathtub. British baths just give you so much more room. You don't have to crunch your knees up, which is in fact how I ruined my joints. Because American baths are smaller. Not only are they smaller, but they don't recline as much, usually. I mean, you can buy specialist baths that do that, but for the most part, the standard bathtub in America has that back that's straight up, so you just have to sit there. And if you're a tall man...
What? So are they like circular in shape, rectangular, a square in shape? I wish he would like put a picture.
And like me, 6'1", then there aren't many easy options for that. You just have to suck it up and take it. One of the reasons is that, firstly, Americans just don't value bath taking as much as they do over showers, which is, I was about to say fair enough, but I don't think it is. You don't know what you're missing out on. They listen to Bert. He knows what he's talking about. I mean, he's dead, so he's not here to speak for himself, but I'm speaking on his behalf. Bathtubs are amazing, and hot baths in them are even better. But the other thing that it comes down to, I'm assured, is in the sort of real estate market. You know, real estate agents, or whatever you call them here, realtors, want to ensure that there's more floor space in the property that is being sold. So as standard, baths don't come bigger, and if you want them bigger, that's going to be a very big, hefty expense on your budget. Anybody who's been to Restoration Hardware will know that. So those were 5 ways that British and American bathrooms are so very different. The time has come to pull the plug on this episode.
Really interesting. Like, I would much rather have a massive bathtub than more floor space in my bathroom, because if I took baths regularly, I'd want as much space as I could just to stretch out, you know, like I wouldn't want to be like cooped up like I'm sitting in a cardboard box. But I'm sure, you know, a lot of you guys who are watching this probably have bigger bathtubs than what Lawrence described. Let me know, like, is what he said true here, that the bathtubs are really, really small? Like, and do you agree with me? Like, I'd much rather have the extra space in the bathtub to stretch out. But yeah, once again, fun video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.